ongoing as Rory and Sam Burns in the lead.
Rory was awesome yesterday.
5 under, and he talked to Scott Van Pelt last night, and he just said something that was so interesting. Basically, he's just comfortable now. He's like, all right, I won. If I hit the ball in the trees, like, I know how to get myself back on track now. Like, he's just a different person relative to the human emotion of playing sports, which is awesome to see. So we talked about the idea of a culture change for an NFL team. And the Philadelphia Eagles have been in the spotlight so much this offseason because things did not go as well. They won the title a couple of years ago, all of the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown drama, et cetera, et cetera. Bill Barnwell, ESPN senior NFL writer, was on NFL Live yesterday and gave this idea for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, in addition to my primary job as a fake trade expert, my side job is doctor. And as a doctor of psychology for the Philadelphia Eagles, they need a culture change. Bringing in Max Crosby to that building, to that room where everybody was mad and angry and upset last year, I feel like is the logical place to go. It's a risk, no question, but it's the kind of risk Howie Roseman likes to take. I think by November, Max Crosby and Big Dom are going to be hosting a podcast together in Philadelphia.
Well, that would be actually very interesting. You could do it on the ESPN app and do it through ESPN audio and et cetera. Max Crosby, awesome player.
Yes.
Max
Excellent
Crosby, a guy that teammates love. Max Crosby's been on horrible teams.
Yes.
Is he a culture changer or is he a football changer?
Well, I think the move would signal to the rest of the locker room that the organization is going to keep their foot on the gas and try to continue to compete for championships. And they believe that this team is capable of doing that if they're willing to pay what it costs in order to pry Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders. So I get where Bill Barnwell is coming from because my initial reaction was like you and our very own Cam Pratt in saying that, yeah, Max Crosby has been on terrible teams. If you're looking for him to be a change agent in terms of your culture, why the hell couldn't he do it with the Raiders? I would say this. The Philadelphia Eagles are much more talented than the Raiders.
Yes.
Max Crosby is not just a foundational piece, but he can be a finishing piece for a team that's looking to win a title. That's why the Baltimore Ravens wanted to trade for him earlier in the offseason. So I think that infusing this level of talent into your locker room and making this type of splashy move can be the type of decision that can bring everybody together. And so I see where Bill Barnwell is going with this.
So it's more of the action and the football that's being added to the equation rather than him coming in and being a voice, a leadership voice that they need.
No doubt.
Because I wanted to ask you about that. Obviously, a lot of pieces in that locker room that are going to come back this season for the Eagles have won a championship. Max Crosby is an excellent football player, no question about that. But if he comes in trying to be vocal and trying to change the culture there, and a lot of those guys have won, and they're looking at a guy who hasn't, how does that get received?
Well, Max Crosby is a baller in game-recognized game.
Okay.
So if you add Max Crosby onto that team, he's your second-best defensive player. So, yeah, I think there's...
Wait, behind
Jalen Carter.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that everybody knew that you were.
Yeah, there'd be plenty of respect in that Eagles locker room for how Max Crosby goes about his business. Everybody in the league rocks with Max in terms of his ability to play the game and do it the right way, because this is a guy that's high motor, that doesn't stop when he steps foot on the football field. Everybody can get behind that. Everybody can respect that. And from an identity standpoint, it feels like the Eagles are shifting from being an offensive-focused team to a defensive-focused team. And they've been on that track for the last couple of years now, going back to the draft back in 2024. So, yeah, I like that addition if Philadelphia would be able to make it happen. But the question is, where are you going to go after that move? What are you going to do with A.J. Brown? How does he fit into what your plans are for 2026? Where does Jalen Hurts go in terms of the need to bounce back and improve off of what he did in 2025? There are some other fundamental questions that have to be answered with the Eagles before we can put them back in that conversation of true Super Bowl contender.
You played 11 years in the league. You won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. You were never active on a losing team. Every year you were active for the season, your team had a winning record.
Yes.
That would indicate, one would think, great culture teams.
Yeah.
Was there ever someone in your memory that was brought into one of your teams that was a culture changer for the positive, and maybe it was you, and what kind of resume does that person have? And does it resemble
Well,
Max Crosby
listen, when the Dallas Cowboys brought in Terrell Owens, it set the world on fire. We went from a 9-win team to a 13-win team and hosting the NFC divisional round with a bye as the number 1 seed.
So people hear that, they think what they think about T.O. You actually know him as a teammate. That was a culture positive.
T.O. is the hardest worker I've ever been around. Nobody worked harder than Terrell Owens. And the great thing about having him in the building was he challenged everybody else to work hard. And if you didn't match his intensity, if you didn't get on that level, then all of a sudden there would be tension between him and that individual. Now, that tension is ultimately what kept that team from realizing its full potential, because after that season, things started to, slowly but surely go downhill.
But he came from a winning environment.
He came from a winning environment.
In San Francisco.
Yeah, he came from a winning environment. And T.O., in the prime of his career, pretty much won everywhere he went. He just didn't win a championship. And so I think that when it comes to Max Crosby, he can have that kind of impact on a team in terms of giving them a huge bump. But when the Eagles are talking about holding up the Lombardi Trophy again, you're going to have to see improvement from the quarterback. And they're going to have to get the situation with A.J. Brown, the coaching staff, and the quarterback resolved one way or the other.
When we're talking about the culture needing a shift in Philadelphia, one thing that just comes to mind is the Philadelphia mortality on the football field of Sirianni and Hurts is front and center.
Yeah.
I mean, you've brought it up for a couple of years now with Sirianni. I want to fight it off with Hurts, but everyone's bringing this up. The Philadelphia Eagles, along with the Seattle Seahawks, are championship organizations that have won with multiple coaches and multiple quarterbacks over the last 20 years. So the concept of both Sirianni and Hurts one day not being there in their prime is not off the table like it would be with another organization. I don't see it happening immediately, but if you're talking about culture change, culture is usually defined by coach and quarterback.
Yes. Let me say this, though. If you have a strong offensive line, and that remains to be seen with Just Outland leaving the organization, but if you have a strong offensive line and if you have a top-flight defense, it makes it easier for the organization to transition from this head coach-quarterback tandem. It makes it easier to move off a quarterback. It makes it easier to move off of a touchdown scorer like A.J. Brown. So, if the Eagles do make that move in trading for Max Crosby, consider that a prelude to potentially moving on from A.J. Brown. And if things don't go right this season, moving off of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni.
All right, coming up. The NFL is the most popular sport in our country. The quarterback position is the most talked about position in our country. How is it possible that we forgot about...
Raiders been on the clock since the Seahawks lifted the Lombardi, and you know what time it is when you hear that sound. 2 weeks remaining until the NFL draft going down here on ESPN. And now we have the pleasure of getting some free game from our NFL draft scout, Matt Miller. Matt, should things go the way we expect them to? Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders at 1 overall. What are we looking for the Jets to do at number 2?
Yeah, we're looking for the Jets to go pass rusher, and that will be the conversation. Is it Arvell Reese from Ohio State or David Bailey from Texas Tech? And two very different players. David Bailey led the nation with 14.5 sacks last year. He's NFL ready with 4.5 speed coming around the edge. But Arvell Reese, more of the upside player who didn't really learn to be a pass rusher to Ohio State. He still had 6.5 sacks last year. A player many think could be Abdul Carter or Micah Parsons as a pass rusher. So the Jets definitely have some options. I don't expect it to be quarterback at 2 or at 16 with their second pick in the first round. But the Jets are definitely stocked right now to get an impact pass rusher at the top of the board. If I had to bet today, I would lean toward David Bailey, the more pro-ready player, but it's going to be a fun 2 weeks trying to figure that out.
No question about that. We will hear all the stories coming out surrounding who's thinking who, and we'll sort it out from there. But you mentioned the fact that you don't believe that they're going to go at quarterback at 2 or 16. So let's talk about the rest of that quarterback class. Outside of the presumptive number 1 overall pick, how does the rest of this class shake out?
You know, it's a big question. Where does Alabama's Ty Simpson come off the board? I don't know if it will be in the first round unless someone trades up. Right now, it's a game of musical chairs. A lot of NFL teams have their quarterback. So where's the logical fit for Ty Simpson? It could be the Arizona Cardinals, who have the number 33 overall pick. Maybe they trade back into round 1 to take advantage of that 5th-year option on the rookie wage scale. But it is definitely a toss-up. Where does Simpson go? And then that sets the table for the rest of this quarterback class. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU should be the 3rd quarterback off the board. And then it's anyone's guess who's next. It could be Carson Beck from Miami by way of Georgia. It could be Drew Aller from Penn State, or it could be a wild card quarterback, Cole Payton from North Dakota State, which, by the way, the Bison are a quarterback factory right now. They're turning guys in every couple years.
That's right. Trey Lance, you got my man Carson Wentz that had a dang near MVP campaign in Philly. You never know where they're going to go. But to get back to the topic at hand, when it comes to where this draft more might shake out, who's climbing up the ranks quickly as we approach draft night here?
Yeah, it is Chris Johnson, the corner from San Diego State University, who had a fantastic pre-draft process, checking boxes really throughout this event. The last 3 months, whether it's the Senior Bowl, the Scouting Combine, Pro Day, and private workouts, I think Johnson right now should be the favorite to be the third cornerback off the board, and that could put him in play for teams in the early 20s this year's draft, maybe even the Dallas Cowboys as early as number 20 overall. He has absolutely aced this process, and after Mansour Delane and Jermod McCoy, he should be the next corner whose name gets called.
He's got his top 450 players and